In this video, I would like to talk about multi-line text objects, how to create them and how to modify them, or how to change our multi-line text object. So here I've got a few different shapes and lines in my drawing just to give us something to work with. And you can see I do have a few text objects in my drawing already. In case you're not sure how to create those text objects, I'll show you the ribbon here. Here's my home panel or home tab of the ribbon. If I want to access the multi-line text tool or M-text, I could go to the ribbon and click on the annotate tab. And then right under that word annotate, here is the multi-line text tool. So I could click on that multi-line text tool, and my cursor is telling me to specify first corner. Really what it's asking me to do is to draw a window or a rectangle of where I want my text object to appear in the drawing. So I will left click to start that rectangle, and as I drag my cursor over, you can see this is the box where my text will appear, and I'll left click again to get me into the text composer. So here I'll just say multi-line text. And then if I click outside of this window or hit escape, if you hit escape, it'll pop up a window that says, do you want to save your text changes? Yes, I do. And you can see that the text object, it defaults to this 0.2 text size, which compared to everything else in my drawing is relatively small. So how do I make that larger? Let's talk about text size and how to change that first. One of the easy ways to do that is I could click on that text object to highlight it. I could right click and go into the properties for that text object. Here I'll scroll over a little bit. I'm in the properties for that M text object, multi-line text, and it shows me a bunch of properties here. So the contents of that text object are right here. The style used for that text object, whether or not it's annotative, how it's justified, direction, and text height. So here, if I want to change my text height, I can do that right here in the properties. I can just click on that box, and let's say I want to make it 10 times larger, so 2.0. And that will make my text larger. And let's say I wanted to add some rotation maybe to that text object. I could do that here. Let's say I want a 45-degree rotation. And there I've rotated my text 45 degrees. A few other properties here we could change. So that is one way I can create a multi-line text object, is with this multi-line text button. Again, that's in the annotate tab of the ribbon. Or if you prefer to type your commands, you could simply type mtext, T-E-X-T, and it gives us the same kind of workflow there. Create my text box, and we'll say mtext. I already have 1 and 2. We'll call this number 3. And again, notice how the text is small. It defaults to that 0.2 text height. I could change that here in the properties, make it 0.0, just to be consistent. So now all of my text objects have a text size of 2.0. So a couple different ways you can create those text objects. And we already looked at one of the ways that we can change some of the properties of those text objects. But let's say I'm unhappy with the contents of that text box. So if I want it to say something other than mtext number 3, I can actually double click right on that object. I'll show you again, all I did was double click here. And now I can go in and actually change the text itself. So I can add to it some random letters. Or I can make some changes right here in the text editor. So I'll escape out of that. If I hit escape, it'll ask me if I want to save my text changes. I didn't make any, so I'll just say yes. But let's say, for example, I want to change the font of my text. One way I could do that would be to, again, double click on that text object and I have to highlight all of the text that I want to change. And I'll show you what happens if I don't. I'll just add 2 lines of text here. And again, I'll just double click on the text object itself to get me into the text editor. Now let's say I want to change the font of this text box here. And I'll make one other quick point here. My ribbon here, I'm on the Annotate tab of the ribbon, and all of my buttons change when I go into my text editor. So if I double click on that, all of my buttons in the ribbon have changed. And right here, this simplex is the default font style. And if you click on that, here are a bunch of built-in fonts. So you have a lot of the functionality of, for example, like a Microsoft Word program, and a lot of those fonts built in here. So if I wanted Arial, for example, I could find Arial. And in order to actually change the font itself, I have to highlight the text that I want to change. So as I highlight that text, notice my font goes back to simplex. So here I have to highlight my text, and then as I scroll through, you can see the text is actually changing fonts. So I'll scroll up to Arial. So here's Arial. And that's not a giant change. Maybe I should pick a different font that's something obviously different. There. That's a little different. Let's find something even more different. There. Now we have obviously made a font change, and yes, I will save my text changes. But because I only highlighted the word M text number 3 or these letters here, it did not change any of the other text in this text object, only what I have highlighted. So if I wanted to change the text of all of this, or change the font of all of this text, I would have had to highlight everything. And then I could pick a different font. So now I've made font changes. I can double click and go back in here and see what else I can change. For example, if I wanted to change the color of my font, I could change that color here. And again, I had to highlight all of the text that I want to change. So I'll just change one of these lines of text here first. Let's make it red. So it's an obvious change. And in that way, I was able to create some blue text and some red text simply by highlighting what I want to change and then changing the font color here. So I'll change my blue font to a green. And that's all great. But if I wanted to make changes to all of these text objects, that would be tedious if I had to go in and individually change all of the properties and font and color for all of these. There's got to be a better way to do it than going through and doing it individually. So let's talk about our font style. So I've highlighted one of my text objects, and it tells me that I am using the standard style. So here's the style of the font or the text that I'm using. And if I click on this drop down, it shows me a few of the built-in styles that are available. But it also gives me the option to manage text styles. And that's really what I want to do. If I'm going to change all of my text objects at once, the best way to do that is to edit the style. So here I can manage my text styles. And of course, here we have our text style editor. And it shows me standard is highlighted. That's what I am going to edit. And I can make a few changes here. I can change all of the font at the same time because these are all standard style text objects. So for example, I'll just randomly pick one, whatever this font style is. And for a height, we're not using an annotative size. I could turn that on if I wanted to. And notice if I turn on my annotative style, then standard becomes an annotative. You can see the little annotative symbol here. So I'll leave that unchecked for now. And if I click set current and hit yes, now all of my text objects have changed to that new text style. So that is probably the easiest way to change a font in multiple text objects, would be to go in and edit the style of that multi-line text object. So again, that's here in the multi-line, or in the text panel. I could click on this standard style and manage that right here. Make sure it's down there, it's highlighted. So you could choose to modify any of these other styles, but we're using standard. So again, here I could change the font of all of my text objects at the same time. All of the fonts that are, I'm sorry, all of the text objects that are in the standard style, I can change all at the same time. So I could apply and close. And so here we have changed our font using this standard style editor. So that's kind of some of the easier text editing that we can do. Now, as far as rotation of text, that is something you might have to go in and force rotation to individual text objects. And again, that would be in the properties panel. Here I can change the rotation. Let's just say I want a 135 degree rotation, and you can see that is 135 degrees counterclockwise, starting at my positive x-axis. So if I were to draw kind of an x and y axis here, whoops, an x and y axis, I'll go in and change the properties here just so you can see what changes I'm talking about. So I'll put this back to a 0 rotation angle, and I'll get it lined up nicely with our x and y axis. So as I change that rotation angle, let's just put a 45 for now. You can see now I'm at a 45 degree angle from my positive x-axis. So I'm traveling counterclockwise from the positive x-axis. And just to highlight that, I'll do it again. And I'll make it, we'll put it back to the 135. And so here you can see I've rotated from positive x 135 degrees counterclockwise, and that's why I'm getting this rotation angle. There's another handy command that you might find useful in editing multiple text objects at the same time, and that is the match properties command, or you can type match prop. And let's say I like the way that this text object looks. If I go and click on other text objects, it will do some of the changes. Now, it didn't change the color or the font, but it did change my rotation. And I guess let me highlight some more changes that I can make. So I'm going to, let's say my text height. Click on it to highlight, go into properties. I'm going to change my text height, let's say 5, for example. Make it large. Now, if I use that match properties command, I pick the source object. I have to click on the one that I like. So I'll click on this, and you can see now I am changing the text height for all of those objects at the same time. So a couple different ways we can make changes to our text objects. This is definitely not all of the changes that you can make, but it's a good introduction at least to using text objects and starting to manipulate them a little bit. So more videos to follow on this, but I hope